Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Red Markets, tabletop role-playing game by Caleb Stokes. It is a game that came out in 2017, and it's a pretty unusual game. So it is by Hebanon Games. It is 500 pages long, and it was Kickstartered in 2017 for $72,000, successfully Kickstartered. It runs on the profit system. The profit system is really unique. It really is a very unique innovation. And so that innovation essentially is it uses two dice, a black die and a red die, okay? And you want to roll those dice, and you're going to put modifiers onto the black die and the red die. And this game, it's called Red Markets, right? So if you think about an economic market, you want to be in the black. You want the higher to be... you want the higher die to be, you want the black die to be higher, and if the red, and that's a success if the black die is higher. It's a failure if the red die is higher. Okay, so really kind of interesting aspect to it. Basically, I really liked the die mechanic. It's very innovative. I think it's really unique. It's very, very unique. So the other one is, this game is a game of economic horror. So what is the setting? Well, it's a zombie setting in actual literal United States of America. And, you know, it's like maybe a couple decades from now, and essentially it is coming from the perspective that, and specifically coming from the perspective that we are self-aware, we are actually aware of the zombie apocalypse, right? So it's a zombie apocalypse in a world that is aware from fiction of zombie apocalypses, and it is U.S. based, right? So it has certain things are happening on, you know, the west eastern side of the U.S. Certain things are, you know, and the Mississippi is a major dividing line. Has a very, very intricately crafted world. Okay. All right, so very, very unusual game. Now, so basically, in the game you play entrepreneurs, and specifically these entrepreneurs are people who are essentially going out into it's split into three different things. So the crash is what happened to bring about this apocalypse, right? And then the blight is the actual zombie, is the condition that creates these zombie creatures. And the zombie creatures come in two forms. They come in essentially still living, and then they come in dead as well, okay? The blight is this horrible disease that has created these zombies, right? And then last is the loss. And you play your entrepreneur, you play an entrepreneur in the loss. Someone who's out there, you know, scrapping and doing what they can to make things happen, right? And to make a profit, specifically to make a profit in the zombie apocalypse, right? Which is really, really, which is interesting. I'm going to get to my rating about this in a minute. All right. I think we're at a point where I can actually give you my overall opinion on this. All right. So I have an unusual review for this. This is a 4 out of 5 star game that I strongly, strongly dislike. And so here's why. One, without question, this is a quality game. It is a quality game. The art in the book is good. The writing in the book is excellent. The world building is really excellent. It's particularly the narrative that the kind of what people would call, you have fluff and crunch. The crunch is decent, right? But the fluff is very strong. Like, the world building in this is very strong. It's a really distinct zombie apocalypse. Although I will say this, it is a zombie game, right? And a zombie game now, like, you're like, don't we already have a lot of those, right? So kind of unusual, right? All right. So without a doubt, this is a quality game. There's a lot of time and attention that went into writing this and building this. A lot of time and attention that went into making sure the rules are balanced. A lot of time and attention that went into making sure this was written well, right? But here's my issue: is I fundamentally disagree about all of the game designers' philosophies on game design. So let's get into it, right? So one, this game is a poverty simulator, right? And It has, and it's written in a very that is the intention of the author, right? And it's written in a very conversational tone, and that drove me crazy. I really like, when I'm reading a book, I want to feel like the creator of this game is the authority on the game. Because if they're not speaking with authority, my immediate question is, who is the authority on this game? If you're the designer and you're not the authority on this game, who is the authority, right? And that, this feels like the author isn't speaking authoritatively, and that is just like, I'm like, what? This is really kind of unusual. So I really wasn't super crazy about that. The other thing is, the game is essentially structured so that you spend resources on everything you want to accomplish. And in the book, the author is telling you, this is a poverty simulator. The idea here is to learn lessons. It's a game of economic horror, okay? And so basically, the author is telling you right in the book, this was written for you to learn a lesson about capitalism, right? But he doesn't say outright what that lesson is. And the idea is that you would play the book, you would play the game, and then you would come up with your own lesson about capitalism, right? One of the things I have this thing I call the Garibay principle. I don't believe that any artist can ever clarify their art for anyone at any time. And I really kind of have a dislike for artists that do it, right? And the reason why is, to me, you create your art and you let the art speak for itself. But in this piece of art, the artist is telling you exactly what it is, which you're like, it would be like if you went to an art gallery and the artist stood there next to the painting and told you exactly what they meant by the piece of art. And you're like, well, thanks for your opinion there. I kind of want, this is a piece of art. I'm going to experience it and tell you what it means, right? Not the other way around. Like, to me, and that's the issue. It's like, if you create a piece of art, you hand it over to the experiencer. The experiencer tells you what that means. You don't tell people what your piece of art means. And if you're doing that, there's a problem. And that's my issue. Is overall, I massively had a problem with the way this artist is approaching his art, right? So that just really drove me crazy. Like, was just the idea. And the other issue that I really didn't like was the artist is coming out, Caleb Stokes, and he's the entrepreneurs. It's pretty clear to me that this is the first tabletop role-playing game I've ever seen where you create a character that you're probably not going to like, right? And I'm kind of like, what? Okay. So I've told you the stuff that I don't like. There's a few others, sorry. The other thing is, I kind of feel like, so after I'd read it, I listened to some YouTube channels. I was so fascinated by what was happening in this game. I listened to Caleb Stokes talk about the game on YouTube, right? And because I'm like, where did this thing come from, right? And I was also like, why did anybody build a zombie game in 2018, to release in 2018? The zombie thing is done. People can barely watch Walking Dead anymore. I love the show. I keep watching it. But, a lot of people are like, the zombie thing's just done. It's been played out. It's in everything. And so, sure enough, Caleb Stokes said that he started this 4 years ago. And that would have been right at the height of Walking Dead was just all the rage, So you're kind of like, this took too long to build, right? So, I think that, and so the game overall is you're supposed to learn a lesson about the grinding demands of capitalism. And so I'm just like, this is a very interesting game to read, okay? But I think where I come out is, I will never play this, ever. So it's added to my collection now. I have no regrets on that because this is a 4 out of 5 star game. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this game. And then, now why is it a 4 out of 5 star game? Let me talk about that a little bit more. So one, I think it's great that that there's a, this is a core rule book, a new tabletop core rule book. It's not a source book. It's not a hack of somebody else's system. It's a unique rule system, a unique world. It's a singular vision of Caleb Stokes. I love that. I think that's really cool. That adds to the hobby. That adds to the community, right? I think that's really strong that it's out there and that's done well, okay? The other thing that I love about this game is, hey, why should Jason Morningstar go uncontested, right? So Jason Morningstar has games like Night Witches, Winterhorn, Fiasco, and this is like, he writes lessons where you're going to learn a lesson. He writes tabletop role-playing games where you're going to learn a lesson, right? Now, I loved Night Witches. I absolutely love Night Witches. I think Night Witches is one of the most brilliant tabletop role-playing games ever written, right? And so I love that there's like somebody contesting directly Jason Morningstar for, hey, you're going to learn a lesson when you play this TRPG. I think it's great that there's more than one person in that space. So that's great. I love that. And then also, I have to say, when I was reading this, I also like that there's now a tabletop role-playing game creator that's exactly like Darren Aronofsky was with Mother, right? So Darren Aronofsky made Mother, put it out there, and then just would not be quiet about Mother. Explained virtually every single detail of what everything meant in the film, and that's what this is. This Caleb Stokes is like the new Darren Aronofsky of tabletop role-playing games, where he just in the game, it just explains you exactly what the game, So I think this could have been brilliant, if he had just written it and not talked about it in the game, and then other people could have said, hey, this is, a game where you're going to learn a lesson about the grinding, where the grinding demands of capitalism. And then they could, say, this is a highfalutin, abstract, cool piece of art, rather than the artist in the piece of art saying, hey, this is a cool piece of abstract art. It's too meta. It's the artist desperately needed an editor in here to say, you need to step back, right? This, you need to preserve the relationship of creator and experiencer. You are doing the part of the experiencer in the art. It's way out there. But overall, I think it's a 4 out of 5 star game from quality perspective, from it doing something new and fresh and really, really unique. I fundamentally disagree with this artist about how you build a tabletop role-playing game, how you talk about your art within your art. I totally disagree with his perspective on that. But I have mad respect for his ability to finish this thing. It's 500 pages long. To successfully do a $72,000 successful Kickstarter, that's crazy beneficial to the overall TRPG hobby. And it's an inspiration to a lot of creators out there that you can do this. This is something really unique. I really fundamentally dislike this game, but I absolutely acknowledge its quality. Take care.